She didn't raise her voice, didn't wear a designer suit, didn't name drop or flash her portfolio. She simply walked into the bank, where she'd quietly entrusted $50 million for over a decade, and was told, "You'll have to wait." But by the time she walked out, the branch would never be the same again, because Ava Sinclair doesn't demand respect. She withdraws it. The bell above the glass doors gave a soft chime, as Ava Sinclair stepped into the Madison and Fifth branch. It was 9:01 a.m. The air inside was cool, crisp, too crisp, like the kind of place that smelled more of policy than welcome. She wore dark jeans, a pale grey cashmere sweater, and leather flats polished just enough to reflect the floor tiles. No assistant, no designer bag, just a slim portfolio folder tucked beneath her arm, and the kind of presence that didn't ask for permission to exist. No one looked up. Behind the front desk, a man in a navy vest typed noisily on a keyboard, eyes fixed on the screen like his life depended on it. To the right, two advisors stood in quiet conversation, one gesturing lazily with a takeaway coffee cup, the other nodding like he had nowhere else to be. One glanced at Ava, then glanced right past her. She stepped forward, calm and slow, and waited at the "We're happy to help" station. The irony wasn't lost on her. A woman in a silk blouse walked in seconds later, platinum hair, oversized sunglasses, heels that clicked like punctuation. She was greeted before the door even shut behind her. "Good morning, Mrs. Langford. Right this way." Ava stayed silent, just watched. She didn't fidget. She didn't tap her foot. She let the space do what it wanted, reveal itself. The young man at the desk finally looked up, startled like she'd appeared out of nowhere. Hi. Can I help you?" "I'm here for a scheduled review," Ava said simply. "I was told someone from the private portfolio team would be available this morning." The man blinked. "Do you have a name?" "Of the advisor, I mean." "I do," she said. "But I'd like to speak with whoever's available. It's regarding account migration." He nodded without writing anything down. "You can take a seat. Someone will be out shortly." She nodded once, and turned to the sitting area. Empty, quiet. A vase of artificial orchids wilted slightly under fluorescent lights. She chose the seat closest to the hallway, out of sight, but not out of earshot. The voices behind the glass kept on. Probably just another consultant, trying to upsell a product. Doubt it. No one comes dressed like that to move real money. Ava didn't flinch. She just crossed one leg over the other, and stared ahead, her expression unreadable. The receptionist glanced her way again, like he wasn't sure if he'd done enough. She glanced at her watch. It was now 9:07. She hadn't come to be seen. She'd come to make sure they remembered who they overlooked. The waiting area felt colder now, not in temperature, but in tone, like Ava had become part of the furniture. She sat with her back straight, legs crossed at the ankle, one hand resting gently on the folder in her lap. Her phone stayed in her bag. No scrolling, no calls, just presence. Deliberate. Still. At 9:12, a man in a beige blazer walked in, mid-50s, Rolex peeking from under his cuff. He gave a tight smile to the receptionist, who straightened immediately. "Mr. Holloway, great to see you again. Julie's ready for you." They shook hands like old friends. Ava watched, quiet. Another woman entered 2 minutes later, tan slacks, diamond studs, a Burberry scarf draped just so. She didn't even have to speak. A banker met her halfway to the desk, clipboard in hand, smile locked and ready. Ava blinked once. Across the room, a junior banker in a light grey suit jacket passed by, clutching a tablet. She didn't look up. Passed once. Then again 5 minutes later, this time slower, eyes flicking briefly toward Ava, before darting away. Still no greeting. Still no pause. The third time, she walked right by, with a cup of coffee and a croissant in hand, laughing at something on her screen. It was 9:24. The soft jazz over the speakers tried to smooth out the edges of the moment, but Ava could feel the pattern now. Not just the indifference, but the order of it. Who mattered? Who didn't? Who got welcomed? Who got delayed? Who got offered bottled water, and who didn't get a second glance? The receptionist glanced up once more, looked at her like she might have overstayed some invisible welcome, then looked back down. No check-in, no follow-up, no acknowledgement that she was the reason a portfolio worth more than most of their annual salaries was currently in limbo. Ava exhaled slowly through her nose, and leaned back just slightly. still calm, still composed. But somewhere under the quiet, a decision had already started forming. She could have spoken, could have stood, and demanded someone acknowledge the mistake they hadn't realized they were making. But Ava knew something they didn't. Money doesn't shout. It moves, and when it moves silently enough, it can shake a foundation before anyone hears it coming. At 9:31, Ava stood. Not abruptly, not in protest. Just with the quiet certainty of someone who'd given enough grace for one morning. She walked to the front desk with the same steady steps she used in boardrooms and negotiations, measured, deliberate, not rushed. The receptionist glanced up, startled, like she'd disrupted something even though she'd just been sitting 10 feet away for the last half hour. "Hi," she said gently. "I'm here for a scheduled portfolio review. I'd like to check if someone is available now." The man hesitated, looked down at his screen, like it might rescue him. "What's the name again?" "Ava Sinclair," she replied, voice even. He typed, slowly, too slowly. She watched his fingers, the hesitation, the way he clicked from tab to tab without finding what he needed. A full beat passed before he looked back up, eyes scanning her face like he was still trying to figure her out. "Yeah, so, the portfolio team's really busy this morning. We're not taking walk-ins right now." Ava didn't correct him. "I called last Friday," she said calmly. "Confirmed with someone named Rachel that I'd be able to speak with an advisor between 9 and 10. He gave a half smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Well, Rachel's off today. You might want to come back later in the week, maybe Thursday, or I can give you a card." Ava looked down at the thin stack of business cards in the corner of the desk, untouched and curling slightly at the edges. She looked back up. "I won't take long," she said. "Just a few questions about a migration schedule. It's regarding the Sterling Ridge portfolio." The moment that name left her mouth, something shifted behind the man's eyes. His fingers froze mid-click. Sterling Ridge wasn't a casual investment. It was a flagship account. One of the largest in the region. Legacy money. He glanced over his shoulder toward the office hallway, then back at Ava, posture suddenly unsure. Still, his voice didn't change. "I'm really sorry, but we're just slammed right now. Best thing would be to come back with a formal appointment." Ava gave a small nod. No anger, no pushback, just a slight tilt of the head, as if she were filing something away. "Thank you," she said. Then she turned and walked back to her seat. But she didn't sit. She pulled out her phone instead. Tapped once. A text popped up on the screen, addressed to her private wealth legal team. "Begin full withdrawal. Confirm transfer readiness by 2 p.m. No delays." She hit send without hesitation. The bank hadn't said no. They'd said something worse. "You don't look important enough to say yes to." The glass didn't block sound as well as they thought it did. Ava stood by the reception desk still holding her phone when she heard it. Low, careless, one of those comments not meant for anyone outside the bubble of assumed sameness. "She's probably in the wrong branch." A laugh followed, sharp, quick, the kind that slides under the skin. "Yeah, can't be a real investor dressed like that." Behind the frosted glass partition, two staffers leaned near the copier, one with a badge clipped sideways on a too-tight blazer, the other sipping cold brew like it was a morning cocktail. Neither lowered their voice. Neither looked around to see who might be listening. They didn't need to. People like Ava weren't supposed to hear, or matter. She didn't move. Not an inch. Her hands stayed still at her sides. Her face didn't flinch. But the pause between her breath and the next step she took was a breath deeper than before. The receptionist looked up at her again, uneasy now. He might have caught the tone of what was said, or maybe just the stillness Ava left behind as she walked away. Because she wasn't angry, she was deciding. By the time she reached the far corner of the lobby again, her mind wasn't in the room anymore. It was in the numbers. In the years she'd quietly poured capital into this institution, in the ripple that removing $50 million would make, not just to their books, but to their reputation. Ava lowered herself into the chair and crossed her legs again. Her phone buzzed. A message from her associate. "Everything okay over there?" She typed back, getting clearer by the minute. The TV mounted on the wall continued playing some muted financial report, headlines scrolling across the bottom about innovation, inclusion, investment. Ava smirked. Behind the glass, the same staffer who made the comment passed by again. this time tossing a paper into the shred bin. He didn't even glance at her, but Ava glanced at him, memorized his nameplate. Not for revenge. She didn't have time for that. She dealt in something far more impactful: consequence. Because there's a kind of wealth that doesn't walk in wearing suits. A kind of power that doesn't need to raise its voice. A kind of woman who will let the world underestimate her, right up until the moment she doesn't. Ava didn't storm out. She didn't demand a supervisor. Didn't raise her voice or pull rank. She just sat back down. Same quiet corner. Same perfect posture. But something in her eyes had shifted, like a vault closing behind them. She reached into her tote, pulled out her phone, and tapped a message with a single hand. Start paperwork. We're done here. She didn't add context. Didn't need to. Nadine, her assistant, had been with her long enough to know what those 4 words meant. It wasn't just a withdrawal, it was a severance. The kind that doesn't ask for an exit interview. The kind that makes institutions rethink how they train their gatekeepers. Ava set the phone face down on her lap, crossed her legs again, and waited. The branch bustled around her like she didn't exist. A woman in a cranberry pantsuit was ushered into an office with a latte in hand. A man in boat shoes chuckled with a junior banker about golf courses and endowments. The same young woman with the tablet passed by for the 4th time. Still no greeting. Ava counted the seconds between each interaction, not out of boredom, out of clarity. She had spent years building wealth that was quiet on purpose, avoiding headlines, letting her capital speak for itself. But now, watching the way the staff moved with curated warmth for some and practiced indifference for others, she felt something stir beneath the surface. Not rage, not hurt. Something deeper. Resolve. She glanced at the clock. 9:48 a.m. She had been in the building for 47 minutes. No one had offered her a seat beyond the public chairs. No one had asked if she needed assistance. And no one, not a single employee, had looked her in the eye long enough to see who she actually was. It wasn't about ego. It was about erosion. Because if they could dismiss her, a long-time investor with generational holdings, what chance did a first-time account holder have? She glanced at her phone again. A reply had come in from Nadine. Understood. Transfer prep already in motion. Will confirm execution timeline by 1 p.m. Ava locked the screen, exhaled once, then folded her hands in her lap, and stared straight ahead. She wasn't waiting for service anymore. She was waiting for the moment this place realized exactly who they'd just let walk away. The door swung open at 9:56 a.m., letting in a gust of warm air, and the scent of someone's cologne, citrus, expensive, intentional. Gregory Vale stepped in like he owned the floor. Navy suit, cufflinks catching the light, smile already formed before he made eye contact. He offered a hearty clap on the shoulder to the receptionist, a 2-finger wave to the junior banker, and a handshake for Mr. Holloway, who was now lounging near the front desk with a printed receipt in hand. "Morning, folks," Gregory said with practiced ease, like he was walking onto a stage. "Busy day." A few chuckles followed. The staff straightened unconsciously, as if a principal had just walked into a classroom. Then his eyes landed on Ava. For half a second, something unreadable crossed his face. Not quite recognition, not quite surprise, but definitely discomfort. He slowed his stride. Ava watched him without blinking. Gregory's smile faltered, briefly. Then he nodded, not toward her, but in her general direction, like a man trying to acknowledge a storm cloud without admitting he forgot his umbrella. She didn't nod back. Instead, she let the silence between them stretch. Let him feel it. Let him wonder how long she'd been sitting there. Let him guess how many hellos she hadn't received, and how many opportunities to course correct had already slipped by. He turned toward the hallway, didn't offer a word, didn't extend a greeting, just disappeared behind the frosted glass like maybe, if he walked quickly enough, this would all blow over. Ava returned her gaze to the wall across from her. Blank, beige, safe. But in her mind, a list was forming. She didn't move, didn't reach for her phone, but her memory held everything. Every name badge, every sidelong glance, every silent dismissal. And now Gregory Vale's avoidance had just earned a place near the top. It wasn't the lateness that mattered. It wasn't even the lack of apology for missing her review. It was the look, that brief flicker of panic in his eyes, The kind you only see in someone who realizes, too late, that the woman they overlooked is the same one who signs off on whether they keep their bonus this year. Ava sat still, not waiting, not hoping, just watching the last threads of respect unwind, one polite fake smile at a time. At 10:03, Ava stood. She didn't gather her things, didn't check her phone, just rose, slowly, smoothly, and walked toward the glass-paneled hallway where Gregory had vanished minutes earlier. Staff watched her pass like someone stepping across a line they didn't know existed. Inside the office, Gregory Vale was standing behind his desk, sipping from a ceramic mug that said #1 Advisor. He looked up just as she opened the door without knocking. His face froze. "Ava, Ms. Sinclair. I was just about to." She didn't sit. "Gregory," she said, voice calm, "I'm terminating our agreement. Effective immediately." He blinked, one hand still on the mug. I'm sorry, I wasn't informed there was a problem. If this is about scheduling, it's not," Ava said. "It's about pattern." Gregory stepped out from behind the desk. "Look, I admit I should have come to greet you earlier. It's been hectic this morning, but I assure you, I waited over an hour. I was dismissed, ignored, spoken about, not to, and not by accident." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "I've had this portfolio with your institution for 11 years, she continued. "It's performed well. I've never micromanaged, never asked for special treatment. But what I've come to realize today is that your team doesn't offer basic decency unless someone walks in wearing the right watch or the right last name." Gregory's expression tightened. "That's not fair." "No," Ava said, leveling her gaze. "What's not fair is assuming wealth has a uniform. What's not fair is requiring clients to prove their worth before earning respect. What's not fair is you seeing me this morning and choosing to say nothing, because silence costs less than accountability." He looked down at the floor. She pulled a single sheet from the folder in her hand and laid it on the corner of his desk. "Here are the final transfer instructions. My attorney will confirm settlement by close of business. Do not contact me directly." Gregory nodded stiffly, the color in his face fading beneath the tension. Ava turned and walked to the door, but paused just before exiting. "One last thing," she said without looking back. "Respect isn't a luxury service. It's the minimum cost of doing business with me." Then she left. No storm, no scene, just the quiet sound of a $50 million decision echoing down the hallway. The moment Ava stepped out of Gregory's office, something changed in the air. The receptionist, who'd barely glanced at her an hour ago, now sat bolt upright. The junior banker, with the tablet, froze mid-step, eyes flicking from Ava to the glass door she'd just exited. Even the two advisors who'd been chatting by the copier stopped speaking mid-sentence, the tension catching in their throats like smoke. Because now they knew, she wasn't some walk-in. She was the walkout they'd just fumbled. Gregory trailed behind her, his steps quicker now, voice low but urgent. "Ava, Ms. Sinclair, can we just talk? In my office for a moment. Please." She didn't stop walking. "Gregory," she said without turning. "We already did." He reached out like he might tap her shoulder, but thought better of it. "I just think this could be," he began, louder now, trying to soften the edges with that same polished tone he used for board meetings and quarterly calls. Ava stopped, turned to face him. A few staffers glanced away, pretending not to listen, but the silence was too sharp, too precise, the kind that makes everyone hold their breath. "There's nothing to negotiate," she said. "I'm not here for a recovery pitch. I'm here to leave, with clarity." Gregory swallowed hard. "This isn't how things are usually handled. You've been a valued client for over a decade." She smiled, just barely. "And in 1 hour, your team showed me exactly how much that value meant." He opened his mouth again, but no words came. Ava's phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced at it briefly. An update from Nadine confirming the transfer instructions had been received and executed. She locked the screen and looked up. "Tell your compliance officer the next time you host diversity training, include a section on tone at reception. Apparently, that's where respect gets lost." Gregory nodded faintly, hands now resting awkwardly in front of him, like a schoolboy who just got called to the front of the class. Ava turned again, and walked calm, unbothered, through the same lobby that had once treated her like background noise. But this time, they watched her cross the floor, like someone who wasn't leaving empty-handed, because she wasn't. She was taking something far more valuable than cash. Their illusion that appearances could tell them everything they needed to know. The glass doors whispered shut behind her. Outside, the morning had warmed. The sky stretched wide and clean, clouds thin and drifting, like they had all the time in the world. Ava stood on the front steps of the Madison and Fifth Branch and didn't move for a moment. She just breathed. No one followed her. No one dared. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. Not rushed, not theatrical, just precise. Tapped one name. It rang once. Ava came the voice on the other end, sharp and ready. Say the word. Move the full 50, she said. New partners. By end of day. Understood. We'll initiate the transfer through the Cayman pathway. Confirm destination account. Already flagged in your inbox. Start now. And the rest of the holdings. Pause for now, Ava said, glancing back at the bank's stone facade. Let them sweat the first loss before they realize there's more to come. Her attorney didn't ask questions. He never did. Not when Ava used that tone. The one that was firm, steady and final. She ended the call and lowered the phone. Across the parking lot, a landscaper was blowing leaves into a neat pile. 2 office workers exited the neighboring building, chatting about a client lunch. The world moved on, unaware that somewhere inside that polished glass box behind her, the floor had just been pulled out from under an entire institution. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The numbers would speak loud enough by noon, and by the time the board saw the transfer slip, they wouldn't be asking why she left. They'd be asking how many others they've already lost, and never knew it. Ava stepped off the curb and headed toward her car. Each step measured, grounded. She wasn't rushing. The work was already done. Sometimes justice doesn't show up in courtrooms. It shows up in wire transfers. It started as a whisper. By 10:22, it was a siren no one could shut off. In the back office, a junior analyst refreshed the internal dashboard and froze. 2 alerts blinked in red. High net withdrawal, $10 million. Then another. Portfolio liquidation. Sterling Ridge Holdings. He clicked into the details, saw the name, and sat very, very still. A second later, the internal chat lit up. We lost who? Someone checked the system. This has to be a mistake. Gregory, are you seeing this? Ava Sinclair just pulled out. Entire portfolio. Gregory didn't reply. He was still standing in the hallway, staring at the space Ava had left behind like it might fill itself back in. Across the floor, phones stopped ringing. Conversations dried up. The receptionist began to sweat. He wasn't sure why. Only that everyone around him suddenly looked like they were preparing for a fire drill with no alarm. Patricia, the assistant branch manager, appeared in the doorway, with her tablet clutched to her chest. This can't be right. Sterling Ridge was one of our legacy accounts. What happened? Gregory rubbed a hand over his face. She was here. She waited. We didn't recognize her. You didn't serve her? Patricia asked. He didn't answer. By 10:36, a system-wide alert flagged the compliance team. Emails pinged into inboxes with the subject line, "You are Gent. Client, termination. High-impact account." The regional director was already on his second call with corporate. Marketing wanted statements. Legal wanted silence. HR wanted names. Back at her desk, the same junior banker who'd passed Ava 3 times without saying a word, now sat pale and breathless, scrolling through LinkedIn like she could memorize Ava's face retroactively. Too late. By 10:52, the regional Slack thread turned into a triage room. Did anyone greet her? Who was on reception? Who's responsible for this fallout? The truth was simple. Everyone had been responsible, but no one had been accountable. Until now. Gregory finally spoke into the chat. "I'll prepare a statement. It was my oversight." But it wasn't just his. It was a system built on assumptions, a culture that scanned outfits before credentials, and a team that thought professionalism started at the portfolio, not the front door. Inside the branch, no one dared speak Ava's name aloud. Outside, the money was already gone. But the damage, that was just beginning. At 11:08 a.m., An email arrived in the inboxes of 12 regional board members. Subject line, Re-Portfolio Closure. Sterling Ridge Sender. Ava Sinclair. There was no attachment, no long explanation, just a single paragraph, plain text. This is not about one visit. It is not about one team. It is about an environment where certain people must prove they belong before they are treated with dignity. Respect is not a luxury service. It's the baseline. I've simply decided to take my business where that baseline is non-negotiable. No signature, no title, no reminders of her net worth or legacy investments. Just clarity and silence. Across the region, the boardrooms went still. A few reread the message twice. One forwarded it to legal with the words, "We need to talk." Another sat staring at the screen for a full minute, face unreadable. In Columbus, Patricia stood in the break room holding her phone like it might burn through her palm. She emailed the board, she whispered to Gregory. He looked up slowly from his desk. What did she say? Patricia swallowed. She said she's not angry. Just done. Outside, the street bustled with lunchtime foot traffic, unaware that an empire had just been shaken by 28 words and a quiet walkout. In Ava's home office, a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows let in slats of sunlight. She sat in a slate-grey chair, sipping tea, not out of celebration, but out of ritual. Her inbox stayed quiet. No replies, no apologies. She didn't need either. Her message wasn't sent to fix what had happened. It was sent to mark it. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do isn't raise your voice, it's to stop offering it. Jada wasn't expecting the email. She had just returned from her lunch break. Grilled cheese, 20 minutes, phone on airplane mode, when her manager stopped by with a knock that felt different. Board wants to speak with you, Patricia said. Tone neutral but eyes uncertain. Jada blinked. Me? In the upstairs conference room. Now please. For a moment, Jada wondered if she'd made a mistake. Had she said something wrong? Failed to log a transaction? But she nodded, straightened her blazer, and followed the hallway toward the elevator, with her heart tapping like a second hand on a clock she couldn't see. Upstairs, the room was too bright, too quiet. 3 people sat on one side of the table, a 4th joined on video. All of them wore the kind of expressions reserved for breaking news. Jada took the chair they offered, smoothed her skirt, waited. The woman in the center spoke first. You were the only one who greeted Miss Sinclair yesterday. Jada blinked. Yes, ma'am. She walked in just after opening. I didn't know who she was. She looked like she had a purpose. You didn't know her name? Asked the man to the left. Not at first, Jada said, but it wouldn't have changed anything. She looked like someone who didn't come to browse. The room was still. Then the woman nodded. We reviewed the footage. Watched the lobby interactions, the comments, the lack of service. You're the only one who acknowledged her without being prompted. Jada said nothing, unsure what came next. The man on the screen leaned forward slightly. We'd like to invite you into our Client Relations Leadership Pathway program. It's a 12-month rotational track for high-potential staff, full mentorship, direct access to senior leadership. Jada blinked again, slower this time. Me? Yes, the woman said. You. Jada's hands trembled slightly in her lap, not from fear, from something else. A kind of overwhelm that didn't know whether to cry or breathe. I wasn't trying to be impressive, she said softly. I was just being decent. Exactly, the woman replied. That's what leadership is. They stood, meeting over, decision made. As Jada left the room, her steps felt heavier and lighter all at once. Down the stairs, past the desk where Ava had waited, through the lobby where voices had once whispered. Every tile felt different now. She didn't smile wide, didn't text anyone yet, just walked back to her station, put on her headset, and helped the next customer like she always did. But something in her eyes had changed. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't pulled rank. She'd just seen someone. And now, someone had finally seen her. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Clean lines, warm lighting, soft wood panels and quiet efficiency. Ava stepped out into the 15th floor lobby of Hartwell & Boyd, her new investment firm, not flashy, not desperate to impress. Just solid, like a place that had nothing to prove and everything to deliver. A woman in a charcoal blazer greeted her before she reached the reception desk. Miss Sinclair, welcome. We've reserved conference 3B for your team meeting. May I take your coat? Ava handed it over with a small nod. No over-the-top grins. No fawning. Just eye contact and precision. By the time she stepped into the conference room, her new advisory team was already seated. 5 of them, diverse in age, background, style, but unified by something harder to define. Intent, respect. They stood as she entered, not because they were told to, but because someone like Ava didn't walk into a room. You rose to meet her. Miss Sinclair, said the lead advisor, Marcus Glenn. We're honored to work with you. We've reviewed your current portfolio and already identified a few strategies to optimize risk distribution without compromising your long-term goals. She took her seat. The folder in front of her was neatly labeled, color-coded tabs, notes prepared, and no one asked her to confirm her identity twice. They didn't ask how she came into her wealth. They didn't ask if she had someone else joining her. They didn't ask if she wanted the basic package or the premium. They asked about her vision. What impact do you want your capital to have over the next 20 years? One advisor asked. And how can we make sure it reflects not just your values, but your standards? Ava took a breath, looked around the room. No one was rushing her. No one was talking over her. She wasn't just being heard. She was being regarded. And that, she realized, wasn't something you could build into a policy manual. It was either in the culture, or it wasn't. Ava opened her portfolio, tapped once on the screen. I want to scale my foundation's capacity by 40% in the next 2 years, she said. We'll start by redirecting the gains from the international real estate sector. Marcus nodded. We'll model it tonight. You'll have projections by morning. She didn't need applause, didn't want it. What she wanted, finally, was what she'd offered every institution she ever partnered with. Professionalism without condition, and in that quiet, polished room, with people who saw value before labels, she finally got it. The room was quiet, but not from lack of energy. Dozens of women sat in folding chairs arranged in neat rows, founders, builders, leaders in scarves and suits, jeans and blazers. Some held notebooks, some held babies, all of them held stories. Ava stood at the front. No podium, no slides, just her presence, steady and clear. I know what it feels like, she began, her voice calm but unshakable, to walk into a room and feel like a question mark. Like someone's trying to figure out if you belong before you've even spoken. A few heads nodded. One woman in the back exhaled hard, eyes glassy. I've spent most of my career not demanding space, but earning it, over and over again, quietly, without applause, without shortcuts. But I've also learned recently that there's a line between humility and erasure. She paused. You don't have to fight to be seen. You just have to choose where you won't be invisible. Silence. Again. Not the empty kind, but the kind that listens. She let the words settle before continuing. I pulled 50 million from an institution last month. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but because the moment they asked me to prove I mattered, they proved they didn't. A few gasps, a few hands pressed to hearts, but no one interrupted. Ava stepped closer to the edge of the platform. Power doesn't always look like protest signs. It doesn't always shout or wear slogans. Sometimes it looks like a withdrawal slip. Sometimes it looks like a closed door that never slams, but never opens again either. A young woman raised her hand. How do you know when it's time to leave? Ava smiled gently. When the silence starts to cost you more than your voice ever did. There it was, the quiet inhale of a truth too often whispered. She folded her hands in front of her. We don't protest with picket signs, she said. We protest with exits, with presence withheld, with money moved, with mentorship redirected. She looked around the room, every eye locked on her now, not just hearing, but seeing. You are not here to beg for space, Ava said. You're here to build new rooms. The applause started soft, just fingers tapping palms, but grew into something real. Not wild, not theatrical, just strong, like bricks being laid one by one. Later that evening, as the room cleared and goodbyes were exchanged, Ava slipped out quietly through the side door. She didn't need the spotlight. She'd already rewritten the standard. If this story moved you, share it. Because somewhere right now, another woman is being underestimated. And maybe, just maybe, Your voice is the one that reminds her. You don't have to raise your voice to be powerful. You just have to know when to walk away. Drop a comment if you've ever been overlooked. Repost if you believe respect should never be conditional. Follow for more true stories, where quiet strength rewrites the rules.